Do you want to go faster on F1 2020? Good. Here are 7 tips by me, Jumbo, with the help of Lando Norris, Sizz Avatar. Number 1. Know the tracks. Now this may seem very basic, but knowing the tracks inside out will help you be quicker massively. If you ever watched esports drivers, they do this to the max. They push the track limits, they brake as late as possible, they squeeze every single tenth of a second out of the track as possible. Now there's 2 ways that you can do this. One is the very obvious way, which is putting the virtual racing line on, and that will tell you when to brake, when to turn, etc, etc. So it's very obvious, that one. The second one is less obvious. I'm going to show you that now. So firstly, what you want to do is go and set up a Grand Prix weekend, and what you want to do is turn practice on, and you want the AI difficulty to be 110%. Don't worry, we're not going to be racing against them, unless you're that good already, of course, but then you probably wouldn't be watching this video. Right, so once you get into practice with the AI at 110, what you're aiming to do is go and watch your teammate. Now whilst you're watching your teammate, you can see when he brakes, what gears he's in, when he turns in, how much of the track he uses, etc, etc. Now you're going to be watching the best level of AI on this game, so they are very quick. And if you can get anywhere close to 110 AI, you are doing very well, my friend. Number 2, car setup. Again, this may seem very obvious, but having a custom car setup is more important in this game than any of the previous other titles, so make sure you have a good one. Now there's a few ways you can do this again. The first one being, head over to time trial on any track you're looking to get a custom setup, click on whoever is top of the leaderboard, and what you want to do is go down and click load setup. So what you can do then is go ahead and save this setup, and then you can use it for online races, career races, any sort of race in the game. Nice. The second way you can do it is by watching fellow YouTubers. Now I'm not great at making my own class setup, I'm going to admit it, so I'm going to suggest 2 YouTubers that are very good at it. They are TRL Limitless and JD on the channel there, and Tom97. Both of them have very good setup tutorials for most of the tracks, if not all of them, and they're both very quick drivers as well, so you wouldn't do yourself any harm by checking those 2 channels out. And if you do check out their channels, don't forget to let them know that Jumbo sent you. Yeesh. Number 3, no assists. Now, if you're serious about being quick on these F1 games, having no assists makes a big difference. Now I actually play this game on a controller with all the assists off. It's taken me a little while to get used to it, maybe a month or 2, but it's well worth it. But don't get me wrong, it's quite tricky to get used to. So we're going to start with the easiest assist to take off and end up at the hardest assist to take off. So for me, the easiest assist to take off is the virtual racing line. Now as I said earlier with tip number 1, knowing the tracks and watching AI when they brake is quite easy to pick up and get used to building up your own rhythm of when to brake and when to turn and stuff. So actually getting rid of the virtual line for me is the easiest. The next easiest assist to take off, for me anyway, is gears. So going to manual gears. Again, similar to how it was with the virtual racing line, watching your teammate on 110 AI is going to show you what gears they're in going into corners and just when to change gears. You pretty much want to change gear as soon as you max out on the purple dotted line on the steering wheel or on the screen. That's when it's at the optimal point to change the gear. Another thing with manual gears is engine braking, which helps slow down the car. To do this, you want to shift down through the gears as quickly as possible whilst braking, but not too quickly or to too low a gear like gear 2 or 1, as this will lock the rear axle and put you into a spin. Not good. So that's another reason why you should run manual gears. Helps you slow down quicker. The next assist I would take off is traction control. Traction control is pretty much feathering the throttle or gradually applying the power. A rule of thumb is to not apply too much power until the car is straight or not going around a corner. If you are struggling with no traction control, you can always do what is known as short shifting. This can be slower but will decrease the likelihood of you losing control of the back end. Another rule of thumb with no traction control is that when you get to gear 4, you should be able to go flat out. Now it's not always the case, but for the majority of the time you will be fine. Now for me, the hardest assist to get used to not having is ABS. Not having ABS on means you can lock your front wheels under braking, causing a skid, which results in a slower time to stop and increased tyre wear. To prevent that from happening, you can apply full brake pressure initially, but as you begin to turn, gradually ease off the brakes. This is known as trial braking, and is regarded as the quickest way to slow the car for a corner whilst maintaining as much speed as possible. Another added bonus of not having ABS is that you can perform some outrageous dive bombs. Now for practicing with ABS, I recommend you go to time trial and to Bahrain. Now turn 10 is notoriously difficult as it drops away as you're going into the corner. It's a double left-handed corner, which is tricky as it is, but with no ABS it's really difficult. So what I'd recommend doing is get to turn 10, try and do it, and then flash back and keep doing that turn. For me, that's the hardest corner to nail in the game. So if you can do that, you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so that's a brief overview of all the assists and how not to have them on. If I'm honest, I would recommend turning them all off in one whack. It will take you some time, but trust me, stick with it. It feels so good when you hook up a lap and you've absolutely nailed everything yourself and the car feels so planted. Trust me, it feels amazing. So definitely give it a go. Plus you'll go much quicker without any assists than you ever would with assists. So if you're serious about going quick, it's no assists for you. Number 4, manual starts. So when you do manual starts, you don't want to over rev the car too much, as that's going to just end up spinning the wheels when you release the clutch, and ultimately you want to minimize the wheel spin as much as possible. So you want the revs to be around 12,000 RPM. This can be difficult as the throttle is quite sensitive. So once you get going, once you've released the clutch and the lights have gone out, you want to feather that throttle so that you can ease the car into traction, and then once you've got traction you can then start to put a bit more power down gradually, and then you're up to flooring it when you get to about gear 4. Another thing you can do to give you an added boost is put overtake and rich fuel on, and that will give you an extra boost off the line. Another thing to note though is that you're sending a lot more power to the rear wheels, which means you are more likely to spin the car out. If you can control it, fantastic, you're going to nail the start and be well ahead of everyone going into turn 1. But if not, you might end up in the barrier. Number 5, pit stops. Again, you might not think it, but you can actually make up quite a bit of time in the pit stops. So one thing I found recently is that if you have the pit limiter assist off, you don't actually need to put the pit limiter on when entering the pits. As long as you're below the threshold of the speed, it will put it on automatically for you. Once you're in the pit box and you know you're coming towards the end of the pits, i.e. the new tyres have been put on the car, what you can do is hold down the trigger or hold down the throttle and spam the clutch button. And what happens is as soon as the light goes green, you should be released. Now the reason why this is important is that if you enter the pits when it is busy, you'll get stuck in the pits for ages and you'll lose loads of positions. Whereas if you're spamming it, if there's a slight chance for you to get out in front of a car, you will. Number 6, ERS and Rich Fuel. The ERS overtake button provides a massive boost when you need it, but be aware it does drain very quickly, so don't forget to turn it off. If you can, try to use ERS evenly throughout the race, and that way you won't be caught out with nothing left on the last lap if you really need it. The overtake button is more effective in the lower gears, but you will be more likely to spin out due to the added power. Like Uncle Ben said to Spider-Man,
"With great power comes great big booty bitches."
Rich Fuel will also give you a slight power boost, just not as much as the overtake button. From what I found, you will use an extra 0.3 laps of fuel for each lap you use Rich Fuel for. Also, it will increase the temperature and the wear of your engine. Another thing to note is that if you're using either the overtake button or the Rich Fuel, or even if you have a slipstream from the car in front, you're going to be going much quicker than you normally would be when you come into your braking zone. So make sure you brake slightly earlier. If you forget to brake earlier, you're going to end up in the gravel, in the barrier, and out the race with some big old skid marks in your race suit. Number 7, Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
Lastly, and this is a big one, our old mate Jeff. He loves a good chin wag, doesn't he? He just yaps on about
having fun and you're going to catch him. There's rain coming in 15 minutes and it's the weather, yeah, it's really bad. It's going to be sunny in 2 minutes and it's going to snow in 18 minutes and the ETA on rain is 14.98 minutes. And these are the best times to be on. The car is miles away, your teammate is 2 decades behind you.
All of that stuff is totally irrelevant most of the time, unless you specifically want something you can ask him, but most of the time, just tell him to do one and focus on your race. Push that button and tell him to shut up, Jeff. And if you do tell him to shut up, he will go, yep, confirmed, and he won't speak to you for the rest of the race. It's fantastic. Alright, so that's my 7 top tips to help you go faster on F1 2020. Now I know some of them seem very basic, or all of them might seem basic to you if you're quite good, but there's a few tips in there that will really help you get quicker on this game. If you enjoyed this video, then smash that like button, and if you'd like to see similar content, you can always subscribe to this channel. It's free, so it won't cost you anything, and it really helps out a small channel just like this one. Also, whilst you're here, if you want to watch my Team career mode, which has been fantastic so far, then click on the link on the screen now or in the description. It'll be great to see you there. If you found any of these tips useful or have any tips of your own, let me know in the comments. It'll be great to hear from you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I've been Jumbo, he's been Lando Norris, and I'll see you in the next one.